The classroom door opened just as the voices inside began to rise, the kind of sharp, overlapping noise that doesn't sound like learning anymore, but like something slipping out of control. A chair scraped loudly across the floor, a student muttered something under his breath, and another voice snapped back just a little too fast. For a moment it felt like the entire room had forgotten where it was. Then Marcus stepped in. Everything didn't go silent immediately, but it shifted. The energy changed just enough for people to notice him standing there. Calm, steady, his presence cutting through the tension without a single word raised. He didn't rush forward. He didn't shout. He simply closed the door behind him and looked across the room, taking in every detail. A boy leaning too far back in his chair, another tapping his pencil aggressively, a girl staring down at her desk trying to stay out of it, and near the front, a teacher standing stiffly, clearly overwhelmed. "All right," Marcus said, his voice low but clear. "What's going on?" No one answered at first. The boy in the back rolled his eyes slightly. "Nothing," he said. Marcus nodded once, as if he had expected that answer. "It doesn't look like nothing," he replied. The teacher exhaled, stepping slightly toward him. "We were just having a discussion that got out of hand," she said. Marcus glanced at the board, where Haferist's topic was still visible. Something about classroom behavior, expectations, and fairness. The irony wasn't lost on him. "Okay," Marcus said. "Let's slow it down." He moved to the center of the room, not taking over, just repositioning the space. "Everyone take a breath," he added. "We're not going anywhere until we figure out what just happened." A few students shifted uncomfortably. Others leaned back, waiting to see how this would play out. Marcus turned slightly toward the teacher. "What started it?" he asked. She hesitated. "We were discussing discipline policies," she said. "Some students felt like they were being treated unfairly." Marcus nodded slowly. "Unfair? How?" This time, a hand went up, reluctant but raised. Marcus pointed toward the student. "Go ahead." The boy hesitated, then spoke. "It feels like some people get away with stuff, and others don't." Marcus kept his expression neutral. "Can you give an example?" The boy glanced around, then said, "Like last week, someone else was talking during class, but I got called out instead." A few murmurs followed. Another student spoke up, this time without raising a hand. "That's not true," she said. "You were louder." "I wasn't the only one," the boy shot back, and the tension started to rise again. Marcus lifted a hand slightly. Not aggressively, just enough to signal pause. "All right," he said. "One at a time." The room quieted just enough. Marcus looked between them. "So what you're saying is, it doesn't feel consistent," he said. The boy nodded. "Yeah." Marcus turned to the teacher. "What do you think?" he asked. She straightened slightly. "I try to be fair with everyone," she said. "I believe you," Marcus replied. That answer surprised her. "And I believe them," he added, glancing back at the students. That surprised the room, because he wasn't choosing sides. He was acknowledging both. Marcus stepped closer to the board, picking up a marker. "Let's write something down," he said. He wrote one word, consistency. Then he turned back to the class. "If people feel like rules aren't applied the same way every time, even if that's not the intention, it creates frustration," he said. The room stayed quiet, listening now. "Fairness isn't just about what you do," Marcus continued. "It's about how it's experienced." The teacher crossed her arms slightly, not defensive, but thinking. Marcus looked at her. "Can I ask you something?" he said. She nodded. "When you correct a student, what do you base that decision on in the moment?" he asked. She hesitated. "Behavior," she said. Marcus nodded. "And how do you decide whose behavior stands out first?" That question lingered, because it wasn't easy. She opened her mouth to answer, then paused. "I respond to what I notice," she said finally. Marcus gave a small nod. "That makes sense," he said. "But noticing is influenced by attention." The students shifted slightly, some leaning forward now. "And attention," Marcus added, "is influenced by perception." The room went quieter. Not tense, just aware. A girl in the front spoke softly. "So, you're saying it's not always on purpose?" Marcus looked at her. "Most of the time, it isn't," he said. The teacher exhaled slowly, her posture softening just a little. "But that doesn't mean it doesn't happen," Marcus continued. Another student raised his hand. "So what do we do?" he asked. Marcus turned back to the board and added another word under the first. "Awareness." "You start by noticing patterns," he said. "Not just what happens once, but what happens repeatedly." He turned back again. "If the same type of student feels like they're being called out more often, that's something worth paying attention to." The boy from earlier looked down briefly, then back up. Marcus walked a few steps, keeping his tone steady. And if you're the one making decisions, you pause for a second and ask yourself why you noticed that behavior first. The teacher nodded slowly. That pause can change everything, Marcus said. The tension that had filled the room earlier had shifted into something else entirely. It wasn't gone, but it had transformed into focus. Marcus placed the marker down. This isn't about blaming anyone, he said. It's about understanding how things feel from both sides. A student in the back leaned forward. But what if it keeps happening? He asked. Marcus met his eyes. Then you keep addressing it, he said, calmly, clearly, without assuming the worst. The teacher stepped forward slightly. I can do better with that, she said. Marcus gave a small nod. That's all anyone can do. The room stayed quiet for a moment longer, but this time it wasn't uncomfortable. It was reflective, the kind of silence that meant people were actually thinking. Marcus looked around once more, taking in the change. All right, he said finally, let's reset and move forward. He stepped back, giving the space back to the teacher, but something had already shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, but enough that the next moment wouldn't feel the same as the last. And sometimes, that was where real change began. Marcus stepped back toward the side of the classroom, giving the teacher space to continue, but he didn't leave. He stayed there, leaning slightly against the wall, not as an authority figure taking over, but as someone making sure the shift that had just started didn't disappear the moment things returned to routine. The teacher looked around the room, her expression different now. Less rigid, more aware. All right, she said, her voice softer than before. Let's try this again. No one interrupted. That alone was a change. She picked up a marker and stood beside the board where Marcus had written the words consistency and awareness. For a moment, she just looked at them, as if seeing them differently now that they had been spoken out loud. I want to understand something, she said, turning back to the class. If you feel like something isn't fair, how should I know in the moment? The same boy who had spoken earlier shifted in his seat. Sometimes, it's hard to say right away. He admitted. Why, she asked. He shrugged slightly. Because it feels like it won't matter. That answer stayed in the room longer than anything else. Marcus watched the teacher closely as she processed it. There was no immediate defense, no quick explanation. Just a pause that showed she was actually considering what had been said. It should matter, she said finally. The boy nodded, but his expression didn't fully agree. Another student raised her hand. Sometimes it's not just one moment, she said. It's like a pattern. Marcus didn't speak, but his eyes shifted slightly toward her. Like what? The teacher asked. The girl hesitated, then said, like certain people get watched more, even if they're not doing anything worse than anyone else. A few heads nodded. The teacher's grip on the marker tightened slightly, but she didn't interrupt. I don't think you do it on purpose, the girl added quickly. That's not the point, Marcus said quietly from the side. The room turned slightly toward him again. He stepped forward just enough to be heard clearly. Intent and impact aren't always the same, he said. The teacher looked at him, then back at the class. So what you're telling me, she said slowly, is that even if I'm trying to be fair, it might not feel that way. Yes, Marcus replied. The simplicity of the answer made it harder to ignore. The teacher nodded, more firmly this time. All right, she said. Then we need to fix that. The tone in the room shifted again, this time toward something more constructive. How? A student asked from the back. The teacher looked around. We figure it out together, she said. Marcus didn't step in immediately. He let that idea settle, giving it space to grow from the teacher instead of him. She turned back to the board and added another word under the others. Communication. If something feels off, I want you to say it, she said. Respectfully, but clearly. The boy from earlier looked unsure. And you'll actually listen, he asked. The teacher met his eyes. Yes, she said. There was no hesitation this time. Marcus noticed that, because it mattered. The girl in the front leaned forward slightly. And maybe we can also be more aware of each other, she added. Not just wait for the teacher to notice everything. The teacher nodded. That's fair. Marcus stepped forward again, just slightly. Accountability goes both ways, he said. It's not just about who enforces the rules. It's about how everyone contributes to the environment. The students were quieter now, but more engaged than before. Think about it like this, Marcus continued. If you see something happening that feels uneven, you don't have to attack it. You can question it. The boy tilted his head. Like how? Marcus gave a small example. You could say, hey, I noticed that earlier too. Can we make sure it's consistent? The simplicity of it made it feel possible. Not easy, but possible. The teacher wrote one more word on the board. Consistency, awareness, communication, accountability. She stepped back, looking at all four words together. If we focus on these, she said, we can do better than we've been doing. Marcus watched the class. No one rolled their eyes. No one dismissed it. That was progress. The student near the window spoke quietly. This feels different, he said. The teacher looked at him. Different how? He shrugged, like, we're actually talking about it instead of just moving on. Marcus nodded slightly. That was exactly the point. The bell rang suddenly, breaking the moment, its sharp sound pulling everyone back into the rhythm of the school day. But this time, something didn't reset completely. Students stood up more slowly than usual. Conversations started, but they were quieter, more thoughtful. The boy who had spoken first packed his bag, then paused before leaving. He looked toward the teacher. Thanks, he said. It was a small word, but it carried weight. The teacher gave a slight nod. Thank you for saying something, she replied. Marcus watched that exchange carefully, because that was where change showed itself. Not in speeches, not in big moments, but in small, genuine interactions. As the room emptied, the teacher turned toward Marcus. I didn't see it the way they did, she admitted. Marcus nodded. Most people don't at first, he said. She looked back at the board. But now I do. Marcus didn't respond immediately. He let her sit with that realization. After a moment, he said, what matters is what you do with it. She took a breath. I'll pay more attention, she said. Marcus gave a small nod. That's where it starts. They stood there for a moment longer, the classroom now quiet again. Chairs slightly out of place, the board still holding the words that had changed the tone of the entire period. Consistency, awareness, communication, accountability. The teacher picked up the eraser, then paused. She didn't wipe the board clean. Instead, she left the words there. Marcus noticed, and he understood why. Because some things weren't meant to be erased at the end of a lesson. They were meant to stay, to be seen again the next day, and the day after that, until they became part of how things worked instead of something that had to be explained. Marcus turned toward the door. You've got this, he said. The teacher gave a small, determined nod. As Marcus stepped into the hallway, the noise of the school surrounded him again. Lockers closing, voices overlapping, footsteps moving in every direction. But inside that one classroom, something had shifted. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough to matter. And sometimes, enough was exactly where change began.